Thanks for tuning in to NDTV Profit. You're watching The Reporter and I'm your host Pragati Oberoi. Let's take a quick look at the top stories of this hour. Markets rebound after the worst sell-off in 10 months. All sectors end in green. After Pam Enterprises, IIFL Finance announces its exposure to AIFs, says it's worth 182 crore rupees. Inox India makes a strong debut, lists at a 44% premium, closes over 42% higher. India's COVID cases surge as India reported 358 cases in the last 24 hours. Before we delve deep into each of the stories, let's do a quick market check as to how the markets fared during the day. Let's have some charts pulled up on our screens as well. After enduring a sharp fall yesterday, the benchmark indices closed in green, with Nifty closing 0.62% higher as well. You can see the chart on your screen as well, and something similar can now be said for Sensex as well. The broader market too had a good day for the trade. As we can see on our screen, it ended in green, with Nifty mid-cap 150 closing 1.56% higher, while the small cap index also did pretty well. Let's also talk about the sectoral review, as we can see at a couple of charts and other things on the screen. The sectoral review shows us that the Nifty Media was the top gainer in the day's trade, and it ranked in the gains of more than 2.5 percentage points. Now, Nifty Auto was the top sectoral loser, however, as it closed about 0.23% after opening anyway much lower. Regarding the market, since it has been a pretty choppy and an action-packed last 2 days, we also spoke to an array of experts regarding how the markets have fared and what are the trends exactly showing. Now, here's what they had to say about it.
Look, small and mid caps don't go for time correction. They always go for price correction, right? First, the price will correct, and then there could be a time correction, right? So I think, look, I mean, in a longer term bull market journey, it's very common to have these kind of sell-offs, and as I said, you could attribute it to anything. I think there was, clearly there is euphoria, at least in 2 or 3 areas that one can see. We don't operate in the SME segment, so I can't comment much on that. But it's very similar to what's happening in the IPOs, even on the main board, right? And there is a joke in our office that if existing promoters would take their companies private and then go IPO again, you could have a 40-50% higher market cap, right? It was a joke. So I think this every IPO getting oversubscribed 20, 30, 100, I don't know how many times, and then you getting a 50-70% pop is unsustainable. So there was clearly froth in the market, especially in the IPO market. Also, to some extent, while PSUs have been the leader of this rally, right? The entire pack, whether the banks and the entire cohort. But I think it was just getting a little ahead of itself as well, right? So I think there was some sanity that was required, and I think that sanity is setting in.
The market itself is buoyant. The economy is in very good shape. The macro fundamental is supportive. As I said, foreign money has started coming back. We'll see more of it. So in that context, retail investor money has got attracted to small caps, which look optically cheap, optically low PE multiples, and modest amounts of liquidity means these stocks are very easy to push up. And that's where you had spirals of low quality stocks going up 200-300%. And at some stage, a day of reckoning is bound to come for these companies. What I think we will see is even the retail investor, the domestic investor will revert to large caps, and similarly for the foreign investor. The economy, I stress, is in very good shape. That should give the market fundamental support, especially the Nifty 50 and the BSE 100.
Internally, we have benchmarks as far as returns are concerned. Last 10.5 years, we've delivered close to 34% CAGR returns. And we want to, if we don't find opportunities where we can make 30% CAGR returns for a client, then there's no point taking money. So we don't feel that, while we continue to remain very, very bullish on the India growth story, right now we see froth in the markets. This could probably, I don't know, this probably resembles to me like something like October 1987, right? Not to that extent, maybe we are in September or this, and this could blow up on the way up, but there are clear signs as far as froth is concerned. What we are seeing in the SME index, the SME IPO index, I think from 1500 or something has gone to 40,000 within a matter of 3-4 years. The index itself is a 20 bagger. You know, the stocks over there are getting oversubscribed, IPOs are getting oversubscribed 400, 500 times. So clearly signs of froth. Economy is very good. We are very bullish on India. Don't get me wrong, we are not negative as far as India is concerned. Our only concern is valuations. And that's one of the reasons why we are temporarily suspended inflows.
Well, that was how the markets have fared and continue to fare that way. Moving on, the RBI's recent move on AIFs are also under our watch. Now, lenders are scrambling to fix the issues that are to do with their investments in AIFs. A headline maker in the morning was Pam Enterprises that said that it would set aside provisions for 3,164 crore rupees for its AIF exposure. Now, some impact on entities was naturally expected, but Pam has become one of the first companies to come out in the open. My colleague Mandan Verma joins us with more on this. Over to you.
Hi, Pragati. Yeah. So Piramal Enterprises today had said that they will have to set aside provisions of 3,164 crore rupees against its investments in AIF units. Now, this will have a significant hit on the net worth of Piramal Enterprises. Jefferies had estimated that the net worth is going to be impacted by about 10%. As of September 30th, the net worth stood at 28,710 crore rupees. If we talk about the specifics, the value of AIF investments by Piramal Enterprises and its subsidiary Piramal Capital and Housing Finance, it stood at 3,817 crore rupees as of November 30. Now, out of this, 653 crore rupees is not linked to debtor companies on Piramal Enterprises books, but the rest of the amount needs to be provided for. So, what RBI has said that lenders are required to either liquidate such investments within 30 days or they have to make 100% provisions against these holdings. So now liquidation seems pretty difficult right now because 30 days is a really short period of time to exit these investments. But secondly, these units are essentially illiquid in nature, so there will be hardly any takers of these investments. So one more thing to note here, Pragati, is that of the 3,164 crore rupees that Piramal Enterprises has to provide, this includes investments of over 1,700 crores in 3 debtor companies of Piramal Enterprises in the last 12 months. This is exactly what RBI is aiming to curb through this circular.
Right, Mamansa. While you're at it, I believe IIFL Finance also said that it will need to unwind some AIF exposure worth about 182 crore rupees. Does this mean that the company also have other investments that don't include any downstream? And are we expecting any impact on CRAR of the company?
Yeah, Pragati. So IIFL Finance also has an exposure of like you mentioned, rupees 182.44 crore rupees. Out of this, 21.37 crore rupees is in the company's is an IIFL FinTech fund. So that is not too much, but the major chunk of these investments is through IIFL Home Finance, which is about 160.07 crore rupees. But what IIFL Finance has said today is that the home finance company is adequately capitalized. So they have not really mentioned if they are going to liquidate those holdings or they are going to provide for these investments, provide against these investments. So to just bring in some context, that the capital adequacy ratio of IIFL Home Finance Company stands at 47.55% as of September 30th. So, but if now that they have not mentioned it, that they are going, what action they are going to take, but if they were to take an action, the capital adequacy ratio will be marginally impacted and it will stand at around 46.39%. So around 1% of impact is expected on the capital adequacy ratios.
Right, Mamansa, thanks so much. So we clearly are not seeing much impact on the company, but we'll keep coming back to you with more updates on this. Next in focus would now be Mandan Bank. The lender has approved the transfer of NPAs worth 775 crore rupees to Asset Reconstruction Company. Now these NPAs have to do with the housing finance portfolio, whose repayment was due for more than 108 80 days. The bank has bids worth 280 crore rupees, or that roughly amounts to about 36.15% of the total outstanding amount as an outright cash payout. Now, the auction of these NPAs will be done through the Swiss challenge method as well. That's Mandan Bank charts on your screen as well to show how the stock fared during the day. Now let's slip into a short break for now. Till then, keep watching NDTV Profit. We'll be right back with more news and updates. Welcome back. You're watching The Reporter on NDTV Profit, and so far we've given you an overview of how the banking and the finance sector has fared. Now let's shift our focus. Bluesmart Mobility has raised 200 crore rupees in a fresh equity round as it aims to build large-scale charging hubs. My colleague Rishabh Bhatnagar joins in with more information as well. Rish, what's the company's plan going ahead with this amount of money?
Thanks, Pragati. Yes, the EV ride-hailing company Bluesmart that we all know of has raised about 200 crores. The existing investors, the leadership team and the founders are the ones that have participated in this round. This fundraise is completely in line with the company's ambition, right? We all know of Bluesmart as an EV ride-hailing app, but also what it wants to become is a complete EV mobility player. And for that, they need to set up all these charging infrastructure that does not exist in all of these cities that they want to scale to. So that's the first step, is to create a lot of these charging super hubs across the other cities that they want to expand in, and also in the two cities that they're present in, which is Delhi NCR and Bangalore. Their CEO for the charging business, Tushar Garg, has also said that EV charging infrastructure is the biggest bottleneck currently, and it is also the biggest opportunity from them. So yes, a lot of new developments at Bluesmart.
All right, thanks so much for those details. NDTV Profit has anyway been bringing you latest updates from the IPO frenzy as well, and it continues. Now, Innova Cap tab has opened its IPO for subscription, and it has been fully subscribed on the first day itself. Saloni, my colleague, joins in to tell us more. Over to you. How has the IPO fared so far?
Right, Pragati. As you mentioned, Innova has been fully subscribed, yet another IPO being fully subscribed on day one itself. We do remember that we already have like 8 IPOs that have opened this week and closed, and subscription coming especially from the retail investors as well as non-institutional investors. So even for Innova, for that matter, in the first, again, as you mentioned, fully subscribed, led by retail, driving this chase of about 2 times as of 4 p.m. and NII is about 0.5x. Coming to the issue details, the price band is in the range of rupees 426 to 448, and the company aims to raise rupees 570 crore with a mix of offer for sale and fresh issue. When coming to the valuation of the IPO, the price to equity ratio is about 31.6 times, which analysts believe is fairly priced, even if it actually slightly looks at premium compared to its peers. But the analysts are actually kind of bullish on the company's fundamentals. So yeah.
All right, thanks so much for those details on the IPO. Let's move on to the energy sector. Our colleague Vikas Srivastav spoke to Kalpataru projects, and the company spokesperson had to talk about the company's growth after the merger with JMC. Here's what he had to say.
So I think it's an interesting time, especially for India. And as everybody keeps saying in every interview, everybody is long India. If you look at our economic survey and the results that came for GDP growth, etc., we have surprised even every forecast out there by having, in excess of 7.5% GDP growth, which was completely unprecedented. Yeah. And if you see the breakup of that 7.5%, a lot of that came from manufacturing. Now, it is very heartening to know that India is finally, after several policies like Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India, which took time, but now the effect of all that, once the factories are all ready and the production has started, you can see that a huge contribution from manufacturing has started happening in India. And that's good for us, because as this expands, you build more factories, you build more housing, and that multiplier effect on economy has something to do for every sector that we operate in, right? And so from that perspective, this India stellar growth, and it seems that for the next several quarters, this growth will continue. And so from a macroeconomic perspective, I think the outlook is very bright for our country. And we being a very large EPC contractor in India, in the top 3 in the listed space, I think definitely that augurs very well for Kalpataru projects as well.
Right. Recently, you all had this merger of JMC and your transmission business. So how has it panned out for the company? How's the growth been for the company, after that?
So our rationale for merging the two companies was very clear. They were in 3 different segments each, and then there were some sub-segments, but key 3 segments each. And whilst they both had grown to scale, JMC was constrained by its balance sheet, and Kalpataru had a huge presence outside India in more than 70 countries. And I think the synergy of these 2 companies coming together, which was seamless, whether from a governance standpoint or from people standpoint, has been absolutely on point as we planned it to be. As a result of this, we've had some immediate benefits accruing as a result of this merger, and those are the obvious ones. So our interest cost in JMC, which was 200 basis points higher or thereabouts, has come immediately as a saving to the combined balance sheet. We were constrained to go internationally with the JMC divisions in order to secure very large projects or complex projects because of the constraints with the balance sheet. But now, since this merger was effected, we've had our civil divisions, our water divisions, they have gone overseas as well. So we've got a very large EPC airport in Maldives that we are doing, where we are doing both, the air as well as non-aero revenue. We are doing a jetty, which is a part of that development. We are doing data centers. We are entering new segments in our urban infra division, which is the underground tunneling, metro, etc., which are highly complex projects, require large capex. And this all has been possible because of the merger of the 2 companies, making it one of the strongest balance sheets in the country today in our segment.
Well, that was the company spokesperson for you. Now it's time for an NDTV exclusive. In a conversation with Vishnu Som, the former WHO chief scientist Soumya Swaminathan talked about the new JN1 variant of COVID and its implications for India and many more such things. Here's what he had to say.
What we're seeing now is a surge in this particular variant globally. It's been first detected in August, but over the last couple of weeks, many countries have reported that it's the fastest growing subvariant, and the WHO calls it a variant of interest because it has certain mutations that might make it more transmissible. Now, coming to India, as you mentioned, we've just started increasing the testing. So over the next few days, I think we will see more data coming from many states. Right now, it looks like a few states like Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, perhaps Tamil Nadu, they're reporting an uptick of cases and this high positivity. Now, the positivity rate also depends on who you're testing. And so if you're testing sick people who've been admitted to the hospital with pneumonia, then there are a few possibilities that, and COVID is certainly one of the possibilities or the differential diagnosis. And so you're going to pick up more as you start testing more and more people. And I think at this point of time, probably the testing is going to be limited to people who are sick, who are presenting to the hospital, because there's so many respiratory infections going around, that it's impossible to test every person who has a cough and cold. But this type of strategic testing is very important because it will tell us how much is influenza, how much is COVID, how much is other viruses, because obviously the treatment and management will differ.
Right.
And what the genomic surveillance will then tell us how much of COVID is JN1 and maybe other variants are circulating as well.
Well, the new COVID variant is definitely under our watch. Moving on, we also have the United States Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, apologies for that, Anthony Blinken, who hosted a press conference and talked about the deepening of partnerships with India. Here's what he had to say.
President Putin has boasted in recent weeks that, and I quote, Ukraine has no future. He thinks a strategy of waiting us out while sending wave after wave of young Russians into a meat grinder of his own making will pay off. On one and only one point, I agree with Putin. America's ongoing support is critical to enabling Ukraine's brave soldiers and citizens to keep up their fight, to ensure that Russia's war remains a strategic failure, and to continue helping Ukraine move toward standing strongly on its own 2 feet, militarily, economically, and democratically. Putin is betting that our divisions will prevent us from coming through for Ukraine. We have proven him wrong before. We will prove him wrong again. Second, we will continue to engage with China from a position of strength. Our partnerships in the Indo-Pacific have never been stronger. In 2023, the President held his historic summit at Camp David with Japan and the Republic of Korea, cementing a new era of trilateral cooperation. We're working with the United Kingdom and Australia to produce nuclear-powered submarines. We launched new comprehensive strategic partnerships with Vietnam and Indonesia, a new defense cooperation agreement with the Philippines, new trilateral initiatives with the Philippines and Japan, new embassies in the Solomon Islands and Tonga. We've deepened our partnership with India. We've elevated cooperation through the Quad with India, Japan, Australia.
Now, before we wrap the show, we know that people who are specially abled or have impairments face accessibility issues. The lack of a ramp or a lift, the absence of accessible doorways for toilets create these issues. But this is not just physical. Sometimes it can be intellectual or developmental as well. Samarth by Hyundai looks at such people who end up facing accessibility issues as well. It's just that these are less visible or obvious.
These children have intellectual or developmental disabilities which create limitations in cognitive functioning, social skills and adaptive behavior. This means that tasks most people take for granted can be a massive challenge for these children.
Occupational therapist, she teaches how to tie your shoelaces or pin your, though these small areas, like maybe for another person, what is a big deal? What is big deal? You have to only wear a panty or you have to only buckle your bra. But even small area things, takes so much of efforts of parents, individual. How I will teach her that what is if you're wearing a trouser or a jeans, how will you zip it?
Children at the Tamanna Special Education Center are from different levels of the intellectual disability spectrum, based on their capacity to learn, They are taught functional life skills and multisensory activities in addition to academics. Given that people with intellectual disabilities struggle with communicating and performing practical tasks, better accessibility, whether in the home or in transportation and public spaces, can be created by the use of universal pictograms, simple complete words in signages, and secured, non-slip, well-lit stairs with handrails, amongst other solutions.
एक्टिविटी ऑफ डेली लिविंग. सपोज बच्चों को कपड़े पहनना नहीं आता, ब्रशिंग नहीं आता, फेस वॉश करना नहीं आता अपना. इसी तरह से जैसे कहीं साइनेजेस है, कहीं टॉयलेट लिखा है, मेल फीमेल, इस तरह की साइट वर्ड्स हम बच्चों को सिखाते हैं ताकि उनको कभी भी वो काम आ सकें. तो वो सब चीज़ें हम उनको फंक्शनल जैसे कार्ड बना लेते हैं, उनको बार बार वो वर्ड दिखाते हैं पिक्चर के साथ. पहले पिक्चर के साथ दिखाते हैं वर्ड लिखा हुआ, उसके बाद रिमूव कर देते हैं, पिक्चर को फेड आउट कर देते हैं, उसके बाद सिर्फ वर्ड, तो बच्चा वो भी पढ़ लेता है.
However, accessibility is not just a matter of physical spaces. For greater accessibility, awareness and empathy is foremost. Asha brings her niece Ruhi to school every day. She says the biggest barrier that people with intellectual disabilities face is lack of acceptance.
She has echolalia, so she repeats. If she likes something somebody is saying, so she'll repeat it. So people would say कि आप उसको मत लाया करिए walk पे. So I started saying, why not? I mean, she has equal right to the walking space like you.
Perhaps then, what is needed to break down the barriers and create greater accessibility for people with intellectual disabilities is to first address stigmas and perceptions. Because if we don't see them, how will we accept them? And for that, we have to make space for them.